All right, welcome back to the channel. So basically what we are going to do now is we are going to do a little bit of technical analysis. We'll try to keep this one not very long. The main reason I wanted to do this is because the market's looking quite interesting right now. Cardano is hitting all-time highs right now. We have EGLD starting to make a break back up. Bitcoin is also kind of fluctuating around this very interesting zone. So I wanted to see what's happening with this. Now, I haven't done any analysis on my own today. So I figured the best thing to do when I started, I just very briefly looked at the charts on my phone and I saw that they looked interesting. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's take this as an opportunity. Let's do a video live while this is happening. So as you know, I now stream on Twitch when I record these videos. So there's a bunch of people in the chat right now. We are watching it live and they're going to ask me questions after. So if you on YouTube are interested, you can always go to Twitch, to my channel. The link is in the description. You can check out the past broadcast there, and you can see the Q&A at the end. So we'll see if anyone has any questions. We'll get those answered. So first thing we're going to kick this off with is with Bitcoin. It's our reserve asset. We want to follow what it's doing. We want to see exactly what's happening with Bitcoin that's affecting the market right now, and what is really going on with everything else. So we're going to take a look. We're going to kick it off here. So as you well know by this point, we follow a number of key indicators, and we've been following them for a bit of time, and they're mostly trading channels. Now with these trading channels, we've really been waiting to cement this middle channel and begin trading in it. But the interesting thing now is that this middle channel has gone up so high that even if we break back into it, we're in the mid 55s, right? So even at this level here, which previously, so let me make this a little more clear. So this level here was in the green and purple trading channel, right? This was a pretty high trading channel. We haven't been back here since we were breaking 40,000 at that level. Now that we've come back into this trading channel, the interesting thing is that if you go over to the right, the same price levels are now in our lower trading channel. That means that what we want to see is the price to come back and once again get support at the yellow line and trade within this range. Because once we're back here at this 55, 56 range, we're getting very close to breaking into 60. And honestly, if we have another breakout like this, I mean, even if you were to duplicate these lines, right? So let's just say we looked at something around this nature, we took that trend up. So this is pretty much the trend that we saw. This took us all the way up to 56. If we see a similar move up, you know, that now is putting us all the way up to 65,000. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's not always going to repeat, and it's not. But the interesting thing about Bitcoin is that if you look at the way that these patterns move, they do tend to have some historical significance. So you tend to see that as the asset gets bullish again, it has similar uptrends. And you can see that here, right? You had a pretty big uptrend in this area. We had a consolidation. Then you had a pretty big uptrend in this area. And these two uptrends, once you go into them and you zoom in, you start to see very similar price movements. The only difference being that when we had this giant move here, this was really big, and I'm going to zoom in a bit more so you can see it a bit better. If we look at that giant move there, the reason that this was so much bigger than we're used to is because this move was Tesla. This is when Tesla announced that they bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, and the price shot up from 40,000 to 47. So we can't assume that that's going to happen every time. And if you take a look at the patterns on the chart, if that didn't happen and this was just an organic move up, these are very similar uptrends. Now that tells me one of two things can happen. We can go into a consolidation similar to what we saw here, meaning that we could see the price move as low as between 40 to 40,000 once again, before picking up another uptrend that would take us well above 65 to 70K. Now in the short term, if we look at Bitcoin, that's where things get a little more interesting, but these trading channels don't really help us there. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to shut these off. Okay, so we'll take off the trading channels. The one thing that's really interesting with the moving averages is that we're seeing the 20 exponential moving average, which is the blue one here. It's starting to drop down and cross below even the 100 exponential. Now, usually on a 4-hour chart, that's a pretty bearish signal. That's a signal that you are likely going to see a price drop if this moving average continues to move down. Now, that could put us going back to around 40,000 if that does happen. The interesting thing is, though, that we have gotten a really good amount of support at this red line. The red line is the 200 exponential moving average. the 200 exponential moving average showing this kind of support and building up this much support here is telling me that there is a pretty decent chance that we don't fall through it. We could, but if we don't, then what that means is that we could either trade sideways here for a little bit and then move up, or this could really turn into a quicker uptrend and we could come back into the 50Ks sooner rather than later. Now, if that happens, you'll very quickly see the 20 exponential start curving up, and that's a very bullish sign, because if we cross over that 20 exponential again, that's almost solidifying that we're starting another uptrend, and this is a much shorter consolidation than we were expecting with Bitcoin. Now, what that really means is that Bitcoin hasn't decided if it's bullish or bearish yet. The only thing that I can tell you from what I'm seeing is that not enough people are selling to push the price. So that means that you have a lot of you have a certain amount of bears that are selling, and we don't know how many of those are just miners taking profits, because they have to take profits. If you're mining Bitcoin, you need to sell that Bitcoin in order to get fiat to pay your bills. That's how you pay for your gear. That's how you pay for your electricity. That's how you keep a mining operation running. So normally what miners will do is they'll hold onto their Bitcoin, they'll hoard it, and then as it goes up to really significant price levels, they'll sell what they can to cover their operation costs. So that could be what we're seeing here. We could be seeing a number of miners selling, and that sell-off could also be compounded with Janet Yellen putting, like, saying things in the news that aren't really favorable for Bitcoin, and then the news media just piles up on top of that. So if you have a miner sell-off here taking the price down to 47, so that's miners selling, then there's bad news that can bring the price back down, but you're seeing that at all these levels, people are taking the opportunity and they're buying. Now, if people continue buying, you're going to keep seeing the price get constricted. And as you know from my previous videos, once you see the Bitcoin price, or any other asset price for that matter, start to get very constricted with the moving averages, you're looking at a breakout starting to occur, kind of like you saw here, right? If we go back down to before this breakout occurred, a key signal that it was going to happen was that these moving averages became so constricted at this level. That means that the price pressure is building up and you're soon going to have a big move. That's why at this level at 33, 38, we were calling for the price to hit 50. It wasn't that difficult to see that something like that was coming. And it's starting to look like the moving averages are getting constricted again. It could take another few days to a week for that to happen. But if you have some more big buyers come in and just want to take care of this price and take advantage of it, then you could very well see the price go up. And honestly, you have to imagine, I'm a guy on YouTube and I started doing this for myself. There's professionals out there that do this same type of chart analysis for very big companies with fat checkbooks. Okay, so for the people that are doing that type of analysis, they might be looking at this as a perfect opportunity to buy more Bitcoin, and you can see the price moving up after that if the buy pressure keeps increasing. Now with that, we move to Ethereum, because if the Ethereum price keeps moving up, if the Bitcoin price keeps moving up, then Ethereum is likely next on that list, because a lot of big investors are bullish on Ethereum. Okay, so the final thing I want to show you with Bitcoin before we move on is this fib retracement here, and I'm going to turn off the moving averages. So this fib retracement is really showing us some key support and resistance levels. We've looked at a number of fib retracements in the past, and basically you can see that around 45,000, there's a very good support area. We hit resistance up at this level here at 50K. We broke through it initially and flipped it as support. So 50K was kind of a support zone here. Then we hit resistance here at around 58. Then we came back down and hit this support area at around 45. And we also have hit resistance back at 50 again. So it's a very interesting chart here, because what we're seeing is now we're consolidating within a very, very specific zone. This zone here is where we've seen the majority of trading, which is why you're seeing all the volume here. So the key thing really is, once we break out of this zone and flip this level as support, that's when you're looking for a move up. That's how these patterns work. That's how the Fibonacci retracements work. Now, normally, if you see that happen, you can expect a bullish move out of this. But if you see us continue to go sideways and drop below this line, that's when you can see a drop going further, because if we drop below this line, then we can expect a drop all the way back to 40, since we had a good amount of support there. And you can see the volume here really tapers off. So that means that there's really not a ton of volume between 45 and 40,000. And the reason for that, let's go back and see, is the Tesla purchase. The Tesla purchase pushed the price so quickly that Bitcoin bursted through that area and never put in any volume there. So seeing us drop back down and put in volume in this area and bring this up here, it's a possibility. That could happen. But the key right now is basically to see which level do we cross. Do we go above 50K and flip it as support, or do we go below 45K and turn this into resistance? That's what we're looking for. That's going to be the key with Bitcoin, and a lot of people are watching this right now to see what's going to happen. That's also going to be very indicative of what happens with Ethereum, what happens with EGLD, what happens with Cardano. Well, Cardano might be a different story. We're going to get to Cardano pretty soon, but it is very indicative of what's going to happen to the rest of the market. You see a drop here. It's a very good possibility that you'll see the altcoins in red for like a day, and then you'll see the altcoins in green, because a lot of money might flow out of Bitcoin and start going into the alts. Now, if it starts to get a lot of support here, then you'll see the opposite. You'll see the altcoins going red, and you'll see Bitcoin going green and starting to recover, because the money shifts between the altcoins and Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the reserve asset. That's just how it works. Okay, so move on to Ethereum. Let's continue. All right. So with Ethereum, we are seeing now that my old Fibonacci retracement, we're starting to end it. So we are actually going to extend this fib because we are still in the same exact area. So let us unlock this. We will extend this fib at the 2000 level up until March the 11th. Okay, I'm going to come in here, go to settings. I'm going to change this to 2000. Okay, we will keep this bottom at 1270. That's where I had it before roughly. Okay, that's about good. I actually need to adjust this to that candle. Okay, so that should actually be at 1300. So let's go back to the settings, make this 1300. Now we have our fib retracement, and we are going to take this and we're going to lock it in place. Okay, so with this Fibonacci retracement on Ethereum we'll spend a little less time on because there's not a ton to talk about with Ethereum. And then we're going to move on to EGLD and finally Cardano, because Cardano has been blowing up. So with Ethereum, we saw one thing that was very key. We fell below this trend line, and this trend line was one that we wanted to hold for a while, but falling below this trend line is kind of risky. And initially we were actually looking at the trend line here, and when we fell below this, we've now created a new fib that's given us another trend line. We've fallen below that as well. So we really need to focus on these levels that we're hitting now. It's very similar to what I just told you with Bitcoin, okay? We're hitting levels that previously were in this zone right now, right? In this zone, we didn't put in support the last time, right? We blasted through it. There was barely any support here, so it didn't get much support when it came down. It's been trading in this range pretty wildly because there's not been a lot of trading volume there. Prices have not been cemented. So what we saw with Ethereum is that we saw a lot of buying and selling happening between 1450 and 1570. About this entire range, we saw a lot of buy and sell volume. You see the volume was really high if you look at the bottom of the chart here. And basically what that means is that, you know, people were undecided. You had a lot of people buying, a lot of people selling, a lot of people buying, a lot of people selling. And that's expected. You expect to see that when you're in price discovery, and that was in a range where it was in price discovery. The interesting thing is that after it broke out of there and it started to look like it may work its way back up, it came right back to the same area, and we're still trading there, but it's actually looking a little bit bullish in this range. And the reason I say that is because of a key thing that we look at, right? When we look at these charts, we look to see whether you're setting in lower highs and higher lows. That's how you're doing your symmetrical triangles. So if we zoom in on this and we take a look at this small pattern that we've been putting in for the last 5 or so days, what you're really starting to see form here is you're starting to see a symmetrical triangle form. And that symmetrical triangle can very well be a bullish signal. It can turn into a bull flag moving back up. So in this area, we're going to look at this as our top, and then we'll extend this back into place. Okay, so hang on. Let's do that line one more time. I apologize if my lines aren't too great. I'm a little tired right now. It's pretty late for me, but we had to do this because the timing was good. All right, so there we go. We see this line with Ethereum. So with this triangle we're setting in with Ethereum, if it continues this way, then we're already seeing the price get very constricted in this range. And this is telling us that Ethereum could have a big move, heck, by tomorrow, by sometime tomorrow morning. This is the 27th at 7 a.m. So this is 6 hours from now. We could see that, we have a big move here. I mean, it's a possibility. We don't know for sure yet, but somewhere in the next, anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, Ethereum could break out of here. It's possible. And if it breaks bullish here, then what you could end up seeing is us beating out these levels and Ethereum going back into the 1700 range. I think that's very likely because we hit resistance here before. So seeing Ethereum break out of this triangle, hit some more resistance here, the key is it going to flip it, right? If it breaks out of this triangle and flips that resistance into support and trades there, that's going to be a really good sign. That's going to be a sign that it's going to move further up and start trending back towards 2000. So I'm looking for Ethereum to really tell us what it's going to do, hopefully in the next 12 hours, anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. I want to see something happen with Ethereum that gives us an indication. Obviously, if we see it go the other way, if it drops and goes below 14 and 1300, that's going to be very interesting because the market is seemingly doing well right now. So this could be a fake out. This entire pump could be a fake out if Bitcoin and Ethereum dip. Then by tomorrow morning, the entire market could be in red. So it's a very interesting time. And the key is to look at these and try to see if you can figure out what the pattern is. The one thing that I also noticed with this is that volume is completely tapering for Ethereum. So if volume is tapering and price is being maintained, that's building buy or sell pressure. We just don't know what it is yet. We don't know, is it buy pressure or sell pressure? I am more in the camp that it could likely be buy pressure because there's been so much volume in Ethereum that a lot of people seem to be accumulating. And if a lot of people are accumulating, eventually you're going to have people either stop selling or big buyers coming in because they're going to start FOMOing in at these prices and thinking they're going to miss an opportunity at 1500. So we're going to see Ethereum is just undecided right now, but the pattern it's forming is very interesting because if it does turn out to be that type of flag, then we could be looking for a very quick turnaround here. And sometimes when you put in a double bottom, these double bottom patterns can reverse and you can have a very big breakout out of them. So coming out of this double bottom and moving back up and hitting 2000 again over the course of the next 2 days, it's not out of the question. It just is completely undecided. We just don't know for sure. So keep a close eye on Ethereum. I think it's going to be very interesting. I consider it a risky play if you're trying to do a short-term move on it because it could just as easily go down. But then again, if you're looking at it long-term, my move with Ethereum would be if I buy it now for a short-term gain and it goes down, I would buy more because I think that Ethereum, if you're keeping your money invested there for a long term, is likely going to do well. Now, bear in mind, nothing I say is financial advice. These are my own opinions. So I don't want you to buy it just because I think it's bullish. That's not a wise thing to do because I could be wrong, right? Probability and chart analysis are not a definite thing. It's just to help you and give you ideas. So take the ideas, do with it what you will, but do your own research. Make sure you know about Ethereum. Make sure you know about the problem with the gas fees, because the gas fees make it near unusable right now, which is quite a bearish indicator. But once the gas fees are fixed with ETH 2.0 and staking is fully active, that's a very bullish sign. So there's bullish and bearish. Keep it all in mind. I see that there's a few things being said in the chat. So we'll get back to the chat a little bit later in the Twitch. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you tune in to the Twitch channel. You go to the past broadcast and watch the Q&A. It's going to be at the end of this, but I don't include that on YouTube because the videos become way too long. Okay, so we will now move on to EGLD. All right, with EGLD, things are looking very interesting. Now, hang on. I'm actually going to go to my other EGLD chart because I actually do all my EGLD analysis on this chart. Now, we've been looking at EGLD quite a lot, and it's interesting. Okay, so hang on. One thing that I really think is interesting with EGLD is that we've been talking about a breakout for a while from this descending wedge. We saw multiple patterns. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. Okay, let's get rid of the moving averages. Or let's keep the VPVR. We'll kill the moving averages. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. Okay. So we've been talking about a breakout from this descending wedge for quite a while. And keep in mind, these descending wedges were smaller. right? We had them at smaller time frames, and we actually had an even smaller descending wedge here, right? Then we had a symmetrical triangle from like there to there, and then we started going back into a descending wedge, and now we've put in this gigantic descending wedge pattern. Descending wedges are bullish patterns. They normally break bullish. That means when you see this type of pattern, there's a higher probability that it's going to break bullish. And I mean, it looks like it could be starting to break bullish. In the last 12 hours, we have seen EGLD, do a pretty decent move from this low. If you look at that low, and we just use our ruler tool here, you'll see that what EGLD did is it really moved from a low at this candle about 35%. That's a pretty good move. It went from around 103 about a day and a half ago, and we've had candles shooting us straight up about 33%. That is not bad. That's really good, but it's not confirming a breakout yet because we are literally hitting the key level. The key level is here. This is where the majority of the volume was. So it's not even that big, honestly. It's right here. That's the key level. What we really want to see happen is how does it interact with this level? So we're talking about where it is right now from around 136 to about 150. So between 136 and 150 is a really key range for EGLD, and what we want to see if we're going back into that bullish pattern is we want to see something similar to what we saw here, right? We want to see a little bit of sideways trading in that range for maybe just 8 hours or so, and then we want to see another candle move up and continue that pattern. Even if it goes sideways a little bit longer and keeps moving up, then that's a definite breakout, right? That's confirming it. Right now it's too early because you could just come back and hit this line and drop below it. And what you end up doing by doing that is you extend the descending wedge even longer. And technically it gets more bullish as it gets extended because the price buildup means that when people come in, they're going to shoot that price up, and it's happened plenty of times. It's not always definite, but it's looking very interesting, and that's the main reason I wanted to do this video right now is because EGLD was hitting such a key level, and you can even see it with this red line in the middle of my screen. That's put in automatically by TradingView, and that's showing you where the majority of the resistance lies, and that resistance is sitting right above us, just a few dollars. EGLD's trading at 139 right now. That resistance is sitting at 142, so it's just a few dollars away. So how we interact with that resistance is very important. That key level, that small key level, if we interact with it well and move forward and then flip it and keep going, that's really interesting because once we start breaking back above 150 into 160, then we're technically starting to see that bullish reversal start happening. And remember what I told you earlier about a double bottom? One of my Twitter followers noticed this too. This one has also been putting in a double bottom. You saw one here, you saw a bigger one here, and now, heck, you're even seeing another tiny bottom here. Now, these double bottoms, so when we saw this bottom and this bottom, it was already looking bullish, and that gives it a price target that's all the way up to like 250 or 260 through a breakout. But you can't really confirm this as a double bottom until you confirm that this breakout is much higher. And it's starting to look like it could play out like that. There's no confirmation yet, though. We really need to watch because just as easily as we have that bullish indicator coming in, if we start moving down and we hit the top of this yellow line, then we could continue trading on it for a while before we bounce again. And at that point, we don't know because then we'd be really waiting to see, do we fall back into this trading channel and start going below 100? And if we do, at what point do we expect the volume to come back in? Because another thing to see here is that during this entire move up, so during this area here where we've started pumping back up from 110 all the way to 140 roughly where we are now, 139.3, you'll see that the volume is still super low. Look at the volume at the bottom of this chart here. You are truly seeing that the volume hasn't even come back. So this move up has been on very low volume. What you really want to see is the volume to start increasing back to the levels that we saw a little while ago. So you see these levels here where we moved up a bit, that had higher volume, but we want to see this volume come back. The volume that took us all the way from 100 up to 190. We want to see that type of volume come back, but we don't necessarily need to see the price move as quickly. Seeing that type of volume coming in over a longer period instead of just in one 4-hour candle, seeing it start hitting those peaks after like, maybe 6 or 7 4-hour candles, like a steady move up, that's way, way better because that's actually doing a lot more trading. If you're just moving up so quick, you do end up having the risk of these types of downtrends because people are selling to take their profits. Nobody had a chance to sell here, right? Everyone was buying. So you didn't really have too much sell volume. This was majority buy volume, people accumulating. So a lot of the people that accumulated have started taking their profits through this whole area. So we'll see how it interacts, but it's just looking so interesting. And if we start breaking that 142 level and flipping it to support, EGLD is going to be looking super interesting for the next couple of days because we could be in the beginning of the breakout. It's possible. And if we are, then we may not be very far away from going back into the 180, 190, 200 range. We just have to see how this works. How do we interact with this key area? And are we going to build this support up more? Are we going to stay in this range and trade sideways for a while as we slowly move up? And if we do that, how much more support are we going to put in? If we put in a lot more support here, that's going to be looking really, really good. And keep in mind, if you go back and look at Bitcoin, I'm basically talking about if it moves up like this. So if you see EGLD move up like that, slow and steady, where volume wasn't that high the whole time, it was high at the beginning, and then it just stayed steady and moved up significantly, that's really good for EGLD because with EGLD, we already have put in a lot of volume. The problem with Bitcoin was Bitcoin didn't have much volume here. We have now put it in. So if we start having a similar type of movement here with EGLD, the volume on the right-hand side will become massive. And once that happens, I think if we start to see that happen, I honestly think that seeing EGLD trade for under $200, it's not going to happen again, right? Likely what will happen is EGLD, once it moves past that range, if it puts in enough volume here, it's going to be unlikely that it comes back below 200. It'll probably start trading in the 200 range and setting in new highs and putting in those new highs over a while, right? Over the next month or two. And at that point, you could see it going into 250, 300. But the key to get there is to get through this area. So that's what we're looking for first. I want to see EGLD get through that area, and I'm still prepared for downside, right? If it does drop down and fall below these support areas of 180 and then starts getting support at 80 again, then I'm going to be ready to buy there. My buy orders are already sitting there. So if it happens, I'm good with it. And that the key range there is what I've told you before, right? Is between 180, because you'll see now that this area here is very much lacking in support, whereas this area here has a lot more volume. So the volume in here is lacking, the volume up here is not. So if we continue to move up and we move past the 180 level, then you know for sure that you're unlikely to drop below it again because so much volume has already traded there. But if we drop, then it is likely that we drop below 80 because there's not a lot of volume there. And then you could see more sideways trading moving up slowly, building up this volume channel. So we got to keep an eye on it. Right now, I'm very bullish on EGLD long term. I think it's going to do really well, but I don't want to misinform you and have you think that, EGLD's going to go up immediately. It might not. It might go down to 80. And if it does, great, because then I can get some more at 80. So you got to look at the benefits and the downsides. And EGLD's already up to 140 right now. What's interesting, okay, if we just look at the numbers right now, EGLD, if we look at the last 24 hours, EGLD's up 12%. Cardano is up 8%. Ethereum's up 4%. Bitcoin's up 3%. Aave's up 6%. Out of all the coins that I follow the most, EGLD's up the most right now. So that's very interesting to see EGLD leading the pack of all these different coins, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, at least for the short term. So we'll see what that means. I want to see if that means that it is the breakout or not. So we'll keep an eye on it. Okay, that is, I think, pretty much it for EGLD. Let's take a look at the moving averages and see what those are doing. Okay, We'll take a look at the moving averages. So the moving averages. Okay, another thing we talked about just a little while ago with Bitcoin. When you see the moving averages get very constricted, you are likely going to see a move. Look at the moving averages. They got pretty constricted. They're still constricted, and we've already seen the move. So if you had been watching these moving averages like I'd been mentioning to you, I told you that once you start to see this blue moving average start curving back up, if it crosses over the other two moving averages, so if it goes back above the orange and the aqua moving average, so that's the 20, if the 20 goes back above the 50 and the 100, that is a pretty good indication that the price is not only going to start moving up, but it's going to start moving up pretty quickly. So that could be the indication of another breakout. So it's a good signal, but it's not confirmed yet because the blue line does need to move and actually cross over these two. And that is quite a bullish cross if that happens. So we're waiting to see that. And I'm really liking to see that the moving averages have started to turn. So that's really good. And I do like to see that it's happening when they've gotten converged. So when they get converged, you know the pressure is building up and you know you're waiting for a move. So it's a pretty good indicator, and you guys are aware of it. If you saw my last video, I think I talked about that in a bit of detail. So the fact that we're seeing it now is quite interesting. And let's go and look at our Bollinger Bands. Now, the one interesting thing here that we see with the Bollinger Bands is the Bollinger Bands really can set in good support and resistance levels. We're starting to break above the Bollinger Bands. That's a dangerous thing to do because once you start breaking above the Bollinger Bands not only get very spread out, but it also could indicate to you that you're reaching a top. So we're reaching that level right now where the Bollinger Bands are starting to have to go vertical to keep up with the price. And look what's happened every time that's occurred right here. See, we had this big uptrend where we started going above the Bollinger Bands and it turned into a huge breakout. Right? But then there are other times like this where we start to go above the Bollinger Bands and we start going down. We hit resistance there. So the key is, are we putting in something like this where we go above the Bollinger Bands and then we go back down and consolidate again? Or are we putting in something like this where we are going to trade among the top of the Bollinger Bands and just keep moving up for a while? Are we putting in the next start of the bull phase? And if we are, then what we are looking to see is for a move of this nature, right? For the Bollinger Band to get very stretched like that and to see us trade along the Bollinger Band. So we don't know yet for sure which direction that's going to move. So it's a key indicator to look at because you really want to see how do we interact with it, okay? How do you interact with those Bollinger Bands? Do you break above them? Do you stretch them? Or do you hit resistance there and go sideways? Because if you see that resistance being hit, then that could be an indication that you're looking for some more correction, like you saw here, right? Just pattern analysis. You look at the patterns, you try to see if they repeat. And as of right now, we're at a very, very key point, so we can't really tell. You know, let's see if the hourly chart shows us anything different. So you can see it a little bit clearer on the hourly chart, how we are very steadily moving up against the top of that Bollinger Band. It's looking very bullish, honestly, when we look at it on the hourly. Because on the hourly chart, you can really see on that hourly time frame how much volume we put in all the way from 100 to 120. And according to this, you know, we actually jumped over 130 to 135 again, just like last time. We didn't put in nearly as much volume there. And 142, just like we saw in the 4 hour, is where the majority of resistance is for us now. And if we flip that, that's going to be really good. But honestly, it's not even really bad. Seeing on the hourly that this dip of volume here makes it be a pretty decent thing, even if we drop back down to 130 and keep trading between 130 and 140 for a couple of days. If we do that for the next day or two, that's really good too, because on the hourly, it'll give us more support in this range. So keep it in mind, lot to look at, but I am pretty excited to see what happens with EGLD in the short term because it works out either way. See, this is the good thing about knowing about a project and believing in that project. How are we doing on time? I think I'm already hitting like 36 minutes. We got to move a little faster. The good thing about liking a project and knowing about the project is that if it goes up, I'm happy. If it goes down, I'm happy. Going down means I get to get more. Going up means that my value goes up. So you can't lose. It's a great way to do things, but you can only do that if you know about the project. So learn about it yourself, make your decisions, and just remember that not financial advice. Okay, and finally, we are going to wrap things up with EGLD. All right, and then I'm going to get to you guys in the chat. Twitch chat, this has been a long one for you. I apologize. I've just been talking. I didn't even realize I've been going so long. But we're going to go over Cardano, and then we are going to wrap it up for the day. Okay, so with Cardano, we are looking at something really cool here. So if you like Cardano, I am happy for you because Cardano has hit about $1.37 as the high. Within the last 4 hours, or within the last 8 hours, like not very long ago. And you can see it put in a lot of trading volume in this big channel. Let's move over to the 4-hour chart so we can actually see this. So we'll see here, we put in a lot of volume in this area, in this zone, right? Put in a good amount of volume here, and now we're starting to break above that level. That is not bad. I mean, that's not to say that Cardano can't come back and test this level and put in even more volume and bring this out. And actually, if you see that happen and Cardano goes back to 90 cents or $1, it's actually quite bullish, because that just means that you're confirming this support at $1. And the more times you confirm that support, the less likely you are to drop below it. And you've already confirmed it once here. You've already used it as resistance here. You've already used it as resistance there. So coming back down and consolidating a bit and hitting it as support again is giving us really good confirmation that Cardano may not go below $1 again. It may not go down much further below it. You know what I mean? Like, it could go to 90 cents, yes, and hit support at that line. But the longer it keeps doing that, eventually it's going to go up and probably not come back to that price. Kind of like Bitcoin. Like, at this point, Bitcoin got so much support at the 10,000 level. Seeing Bitcoin come back to 10,000 at this point will likely never happen, right? It's unlikely. Something terrible would have to happen with the cryptocurrency industry to bring Bitcoin back down to 10,000. And if you look at the chart for Bitcoin, I'll let you do this on your own, you'll see a ton of support there at 10 grand because it sat there for so long. And so many people bought at that level. That's why the majority of Bitcoin holders are in profit now, because so many of them bought early. Okay, but now what we're going to look at is the key levels for where Cardano needs to hit. So you'll see what I had talked about in my chart. This was my prediction that I did like in my last video. And what I was looking to see with Cardano is a little bit more trading on this line, because I wanted to see this volume build up. But it's actually gotten more bullish than that. So the move I was expecting was here, like in 2 days. Right? So, and that's almost exactly where we're trading now. Like, if you look at this line for where the price is, it's trading right at the peak of where I was looking at it. And I was looking at it to hit about this level and then come back and test. So basically, if we were to take my prediction and just move it over, right? That's kind of what I was looking for. I was looking for the price to hit this level and then come back down here and test, move up and get resistance at 150, and then come back and test, because my thought was that Cardano is very bullish. I'm even very bullish on it. And if a lot more people are getting into it and seeing the value of the project, it's unlikely that you see a ton of sell-off right now. You tend to see sell-off when people become bearish on the project. You don't tend to see sell-off when people are bullish. So seeing the price go up to a 150 level and then people being like, oh, I got to take my profits, that's very much possible. And that could bring you back down to this red line where, we would have had already one hit for turning it into support. So, perhaps it'll come back and make a move like this, but I'm just going to keep my prediction where it was, and, we'll watch it. We'll see if we do come back and touch this line and then move back up. It'll be very interesting to see if my prediction was correct with the movement, but just a day off or 2 days off. So that'll be interesting. That's one thing that I'm seeing with Cardano, is that it's looking really bullish, but I do expect to see a test at 120 and to see it get support there. If that does not happen, then what is possible with Cardano is a much bigger move up. If it just continues the bullish momentum, then we're talking about it going closer to the $2 level. And this entire run could turn into a duplicate of what we saw here. This massive run up, it could get duplicated and we see another one of those runs. But the only issue I have with Cardano is, are people keeping an eye on the amount of Cardano that exists? Are they keeping an eye on the valuation, the market cap? Because there's a lot of Cardano. The supply is not nearly as limited as Bitcoin. So it's interesting to see the market cap blow up like that when the price moves, but that is what you would see. And the issue with that is that if you have so many people holding a lot of Cardano, you're likely going to see some of the people staking it take profits at some point. They're not going to hold it forever. You know, people need cash for other things at times. So that doesn't mean they have to sell a lot. They might just sell a small amount, but a lot of people selling a small amount to take profits amounts to a lot of volume and can bring the asset back into a correction. So I would just say be wary of that because we haven't seen a massive sell-off with it yet. It's moved up to this level, and this entire run, Cardano has not seen since, look at this chart, okay? Since 40 cents, since 37 cents, Cardano has been moving up, but there has been no really significant correction. The only correction we really saw was moving from $1.20 back down to 84 cents, right? 30%, that's not a bad correction. It's an okay correction, but the issue that I have with that is that the volume of it never stayed in this area for too long. If this was a longer correction, I would have been a little bit more confident in it. But keep in mind, this lasted from the 20th to the 23rd. This was a 2-day long correction. That's a very, very short correction. By the 23rd, it was already picking up again. So seeing a longer sustained correction for Cardano, I think is in the cards. It's going to happen. But the question is, when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen when Cardano hits $2 and then it corrects back to $1.50? Or is it going to happen when Cardano hits $1.50 and it corrects back to $1? So just keep it in mind. Bear in mind that Cardano is another one of those assets that for me, I look at it as a very long-term play. So I have Cardano and I don't plan on selling it. I don't care. Even if it goes back down to 50 cents, I'm not selling Cardano because I think that this project is going to do well over a long period of time. So why would I sell it? What am I selling it for? If I sell it and I have dollars, where am I going to put it, right? The only other place to put it is in something like Bitcoin. And I can do that if I want. That's not a bad thing to do. But I think this has a lot of potential, so I'm willing to take the bet on it. And if you don't know much about Cardano, really read about the project and get to know it. At some point in the future, I have a number of videos planned out for the month of March. So I'll see. If I have the time, I'll squeeze in a Cardano video that tells you about Cardano so you can learn some about it. Because the majority of my viewers know a lot about EGLD, but they don't know a lot about Cardano. So for the people who don't know a lot about Cardano, I'm going to educate you so you learn about it. Okay, I think that is pretty much it for Cardano. We're going to have to just wrap up with the Bollinger Bands. You'll see it's in the same place as EGLD. It could be a breakout happening, so keep an eye on the bands. The other thing to wrap up with is the moving averages. The moving averages for Cardano are looking interesting because they're telling us that it's already coming into this bull movement, but we really want to see if Cardano drops back down to the 20 exponential. Does it get support there at 113? So that's kind of a key level for Cardano right now. If it drops down around 113 is a key level, we want to see support there if it's going to continue the uptrend. And you definitely want to see support at around $1 to 105. So those levels are really key. Now, if you get the support at 123, that's extremely good. Then that means that it's still in that bullish momentum. So like, think about it this way, right? Cardano comes down, it gets support at 123 right here. At the same time, the moving average keeps moving up, and then you could just see another move from here, right? That's kind of how these things work. Kind of like you saw here, right? It came back and touched the moving average. It actually dropped below it a little bit, and then it bounced up. So seeing that repeat, also possible. Okay, now that is actually it for Cardano. I think that's everything. This has been an interesting run. Bitcoin is sitting at 48,000 as we're wrapping up this video. Ethereum is sitting at 1,500 as we're wrapping this up, 1,521. EGLD has broken past 140. It's sitting at 142 right now. So if we turn on our, let's turn on some of our stuff. Let's turn on our EMAs and VPVR and Bollinger Bands. So if you look at this, EGLD is at that key critical level right now. So Keep an eye on it, see how it goes. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you check in the description for my Twitch link, for my Twitter link. Follow me there. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry for the length, but if you enjoyed it, I'm not so sorry. All right, catch you next time. Have a wonderful night. Trade safely, perform risk management. Peace.